All right, well, let's go now to Canada and we'll talk with Rana. Hey, Rana, what's on your heart tonight?
Hi, I just have a question about tithing.
Yes.
Basically, I'm really new in Christ. I found a church I loved online. I moved here. I gave away about 80% of my stuff, and I'm sitting there in church, and the pastor says, "Oh, if you don't tithe, you're stealing from God. I'm really broke right now, and I feel guilty, and I don't want to feel like a thief in church." What are your thoughts?
Okay, yeah, well, you're not a thief. I'm sorry you're hearing such a sorry message. That's guilt ridden and pressure filled. Your question is it a sin not to tithe? I would say no, it's a sin to tithe. It's a sin to tithe because anybody that thinks they're required to give 10% and they're giving out of that obligation, then that's a sin. I don't think it's the opposite. It's not a sin not to tithe. It's actually a sin to tithe. Now, some people might disagree with me on that, but is it a sin to try to get right and stay right with God by the law? Well, of course it is. That's sinful. And so if somebody is trying to give money because they are believing that it gains them favor with God, then that's what's sinful. And unfortunately, it sounds like the teaching that you're getting is exactly that you're robbing from God. If you don't give a tithe, that you should feel bad about that. You should therefore feel some sort of pressure or guilt in order to give that tithe. And then once you give it, that then you're allowed to feel, oh, I don't know, feel prosperous or feel blessed or feel like you're in a good standing with the Lord and you're no longer robbing Him. When we read these passages in the Old Testament, namely in Malachi chapter 3, that we are robbing God, well, it's talking about the Israelites bringing their tithe into the storehouse. And what do you put in a storehouse? Well, you put grain in there. So are we supposed to get some grain and dump some Farley barley, I call it, right there on the church lawn? I don't think so. That's Old Testament. The context is Israel. The gift or the tithe is grain in order to feed people and or livestock. And that's what was happening in Malachi 3. So who do we think we are? What do we think we're doing? Pressuring people like you, Rana. You're struggling financially. You've already given up a lot of things that you own in order to move across the country, it sounds like, and trying to settle into a church and meet people and be encouraged by great teaching. And then, lo and behold, you're there 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 weeks, I don't know, but you're already starting to feel the pressure and the guilt. The New Testament says that we can give freely from the heart, not under pressure. And so anybody that is teaching you that you have to give a certain amount in order to stay blessed or avoid curses, as Malachi 3 says, well, that's sinful. It's sinful teaching. They're leading you away from giving by faith, and they're teaching you to give by law. And that's a sinful teaching, and it's sinful for them to teach that. Now, somebody might say, well, what do you mean it's sinful? I mean, they're not lying and cheating and stealing. They're not committing adultery or any of that sort of thing. So how is it sinful? Well, in a sense, it is spiritual adultery because we're moving away from trusting Jesus and we're instead trusting Moses. See, the idea of tithing comes from the Jewish law. And if somebody disagrees with that, well, they're disagreeing with Jesus because Jesus said it in Matthew 23:23. He said that tithing is a matter of the law. But you, Rana, you're not under the law. You're a new creation in Christ. You're dead to the law and free from the law, and Christ is the end of the law for you because you believe. That's what Romans tells us. So whether it's Romans or Galatians or any other New Testament letter, I mean, Paul is so very clear that you're dead to the law, not under it, and free from the law, and Christ is the end of the law. And so that means that you're not under the tithe, and Christ is the end of the tithe for you, and you're dead to the tithe. So you get to give freely from the heart, not under any pressure, no compulsion. You get to be a cheerful giver. Paul, furthermore, tells the Corinthians to give out of their abundance and give out of their excess, but not to try to meet a standard or a benchmark or hit a number. That's the problem. When we start mandating certain things and turning this into a cookie cutter Christianity, and then here you come along, Rana, you've got unique circumstances, financial difficulties. Are we really wanting people like you to think that the heart of God is that he needs your cash and he needs it now, or else you're robbing him and you better hit this 10%? Well, first of all, that's the wrong percentage. Even in the Old Testament, it wasn't 10%. That's a joke. When you actually do the math, it was about 22 or 23% annually. So anyone who teaches a 10% mandate, they're teaching the wrong percentage, they're teaching the wrong motivation, and they're teaching the wrong covenant. We live under the new covenant, not the old covenant. We live under a New Testament era, not the Old Testament era. The motivation is not law, but grace. And the percentage is not 10% or 23%. There is no percentage. There's no benchmark. We get to take that measuring stick and crack it in half over our knee and just live from the heart and give cheerfully and passionately when we're able to give. It should be joyful, not drudgery. So I'll put you back on, Rana, and see. Does that help? Does that make sense, my friend?
Oh, I definitely feel guilt-free now, and my goal was to give freely anyway, so I'm very happy now. Thank you so much.
All right, Rana. Well, you're welcome, and you should feel free.